friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts.
Making in the margins of your life, when that's where you're at, it's important to actually name those margins. And she shared all this, and it actually really helped me go, okay, I need to name my space, name the time I have. My encouragement would be name your margins, name the space you have, the time you have, and then make the most of that time when you do whatever it takes you to jump in, set up the scene, like put on the podcast you want to listen to, put on the show, put on the music. For me, it would be to do a warm up quickly so that I can jump in, or have everything out, lay it out in the morning so I can sit down.
Happy Tuesday, friends. I'm so grateful to get the opportunity to connect with you each week through the podcast. You can find the Creative Impact Podcast on Facebook or Instagram and share what resonates with you from each episode. If you haven't already, I would be so grateful to have you rate and review the show on iTunes. My goal is to reach 30 ratings by August 1st. Right now, we're at 27 ratings. Would you be the one that helps us to get to 30? You can help other people find the show by leaving your feedback today. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to give a special thank you to our Patreon community for helping us to make this show possible. Also, thank you to Audible, who is offering a free trial to our podcast listeners. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests and more. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. One of my favorite audiobooks right now is Rhythms of Renewal by Rebecca Lyons. You'll actually hear me mention it in the episode today. I love that it is read by the author, which gives it an even more personal feel. You can listen to Rhythms of Renewal today with a free trial of Audible. Visit audibletrial.com/creativeimpact. Again, that's audibletrial.com/creativeimpact. My friend Katelyn Harbaugh joins me today for a conversation about art and motherhood. Katelyn is a stay-at-home mom to her 3 children and is a visual artist who creates in what she describes as the margins of her life. In our conversation, we talk about Katelyn's journey as an artist and her experience balancing a small business with being a stay-at-home mom. Katelyn shares about her current projects and her process for creating art. We talk about the importance of community and how different our community can look in different seasons. No matter what season of life you are in, I believe Katelyn's story will encourage you to be faithful in the daily practices, in the seemingly mundane parts of life, and to consider your why as an artist. Enjoy my conversation with Katelyn Harbaugh. I am here with Katelyn Harbaugh, and she is a wife and a mom and also a visual artist. And I'm super excited to have you here, Katelyn. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's so fun.
Honored to be included with so many awesome guests I know you've had.
Yeah, well, you are awesome as well. And it's super fun to get to reconnect with you. So Katelyn and I went to college together, but then it was cool because our relationship shifted a little after you graduated and you became the resident director, and I got to be an RA under you. So that was super fun.
Yes, it was. And you were my returner,
which
meant that you had extra experience. So you really helped. You helped me figure it all out.
Yeah, it's a team effort.
Yes, it really is.
Exactly. That was a fun season for sure. Well, do you want to just kind of introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about who you are, what you're up to?
Yeah, I am a wife, a mom, and an artist, like Rachel said, and it goes in that order in my mind. But first, I am a Christian, and so that has to be number 1, and then serving my husband has to be number 2, my children, and then I've been blessed to fit art in the middle of all of that, and I'm very thankful. I live in Madison, Mississippi. I went to Belhaven, which is in Jackson, Mississippi, and ended up staying. That's where I met my husband. And neither of us, I don't think, envisioned staying in the area. And yet here we are, 8 years later.
Wow. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Colorado Springs, Colorado. Lived other places too, but that was the longest
Kind
before.
of home base for you
Yeah,
before. Yeah. So
before
that's kind
moving
of a
away
long
for
ways to go
college.
for college and then just to stay there. That's an
Yes.
adventure.
Yeah, my parents were very kind and encouraging, even though it was 18 hours away.
Wow. Yeah. And so how many kids do you have?
I have 3 kids. My oldest is, and by the time you're hearing this, she'll be 5. Sadie. My middle is Ava. She's 3. And then my youngest is Thomas, and he might be 1 by the time this comes out.
Oh, wow. That's so
Yeah,
amazing. So
it
sweet. I
is.
love seeing pictures on Facebook and kind of keeping track of your life that way.
They're busy and fun.
Yes, for sure. Super busy, I bet. And we'll definitely get into more about motherhood and that whole journey for sure. So I'm curious, what got you into the arts? And I know obviously visual art is kind of what we're focusing in on, but I happen to know that you have a beautiful voice as well
No.
and are musically inclined. So yeah, what got you started with art?
I was thinking about this question, and it goes back really far. It goes all the way back to early days in elementary school. And it was always the subject and the extracurricular activity that I just loved. And that includes music as well. I really enjoyed those the most in school, and other subjects were harder for me. They came more naturally. And so I was also really encouraged by teachers, and especially in high school, I had a high school art teacher who really mentored me and encouraged me, Mr. Holtkamp. And then I was also in a Bible study, and the lady was teaching us calligraphy in the summers
Oh,
as a
that's
way
cool.
to continue a relationship throughout the year. And so she also really molded me in my love for it and also my obsession with supplies. But her name's Lonnie Watts, and she gave so many years to a bunch of us girls. And between those two things, and then I think the natural inclination, and also when you have a natural gifting in something, it's easier to pursue that. So I'm thankful. I feel like that was truly, God gave me certain skills, and I was encouraged to keep using them throughout my whole life.
Yeah.
And then my parents were gracious enough to say, sure, you can study that in college.
I know
Which
it's probably an interesting
I found
conversation.
out after the fact. Yeah. I found out after the fact my dad was on board all the time. And then my mom was a little nervous for me because she's like, well, what will she do with that? And it's a valid question and point, but it's been amazing to get to use it. So, yeah.
For sure. That's awesome. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how the things that we tend to enjoy the most as children end up being kind of that passion that we still have as an adult. And it may look a little different, but that there's kind of those threads all throughout.
Yeah.
I've been reading a book called Rhythms of Renewal by Rebecca Lyons.
Okay.
Have you heard of that one? And it's really good, but she's not the only one, but she talks about that, how you can kind of look back and what did you love? Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you love when you were growing up?
I feel like I've heard about that book recently. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty recent. Yeah. It's really good. So I would recommend it. Yeah, that's super cool. So then I guess you said your parents were on board for you pursuing it in college. And then how did you find Belhaven?
So I was looking at going to a Christian art school was my big caveat. And I didn't really know of any with a really solid art program. And if I wasn't going to get to study art in college, I was just going to live at home and go to a school nearby for business. And my parents, my dad was a missionary for several years, and there was a area retreat. And a pastor who lived in Colorado at the time of my high school career up until 10th grade was the retreat speaker. And this was my 12th grade year in high school. And so he asked me where I was going to school, what I was going to study. And I was explaining that I really wanted to study art from Christian worldview, maybe play volleyball. I wanted to have certain options. And he goes, well, have you heard of Belhaven? And I said, no, where's Belhaven? Because it's in Jackson, Mississippi. And he had become a pastor in Ridgeland, Mississippi. So that's where he had come from for this retreat. And he's like, you can come and stay with us and visit your parents,
cool.
We'd show you around. So we did that, and I fell in love with the department. I decided not to play volleyball, that it was better to just focus on art and the transition away from home. So that's how I came here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely fell in love with it when I first visited as well. There's just something about the culture and the environment there.
Exactly.
You kind of feel at home right away. That's super cool. And then I feel like there was at least one person, maybe more, that came from Colorado after you, right? Did you kind of start a trend?
I think so. I think several parents in our church were like, well, if your daughter is thriving, I guess it'll be okay for our kids to visit. And then I think the same thing happened. They fell in love with the different departments, but several friends were in art and then in music. And then my brothers both came as
That's
well.
right.
Yes. And now they both live here as well, much to my mother's shock. No, she's actually really thankful that we're all in one location for visiting.
Yeah, at least when they visit, they can visit all of you.
Exactly. Exactly. But she goes, everyone moved 18 hours away. And I just keep reminding her it's a really good sign that she raised independent children.
Yes.
I'm like, we're thriving, Mom. You've done a good job.
That's awesome. I love it. So how did you feel in college doing a degree in art? What was that experience like?
That was a lot of fun and hard work all at the same time. I like to joke that I majored in a social life in college and minored in art because I got really involved in as many things as I could in college. RUF, the activities team. I actually ended up on the Belhaven Leadership Council. I was an RA. And the art department probably would have preferred that I was in my studio a little more, actually doing the things I was supposed to be doing. But I got to kind of have the best, in my mind, I got the best of both worlds. I got the experiences of learning art and art history and perspectives and design and all of that deeply. And then I got to make, friends outside of the department and in the department that have just lasted for years now.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I'm curious, what got you interested in becoming an RD after you graduated?
It was definitely my experience as a resident assistant while I was at Belhaven. I really loved it. I loved connecting with the students, and I had skills in organization and running events as well. And yeah, it just seemed like a really good fit at the time. It's definitely a calling in that moment. And I did it for 4 years and was in Helen White, if you know that building.
Yeah, Helen White.
Go H-Dub. Best building in my opinion. I didn't live there as a student. That's the funny part. I never lived there as a student, but I was already there for 4 years. And it was just a quaint little building it was quieter and sweet. But
yeah, it's definitely a sweet place. Yeah, yes. I loved Caldwell Hall too, but Helen White was great. That was my senior year, so I really enjoyed it. Yeah. And I loved, we did this event called Nightlights.
Yes.
Helen White Nightlights. And it was so fun because we get to dress up and we would serve fun desserts and foods and stuff and have swing dancing. And yeah, it was a blast for sure.
It really was. Oh, yeah. Bringing back so many good memories.
Yes, so many memories. So while you were in RD, were you still doing art on the side as well?
Not really. It was hit or miss. And I look back now at the time I had while I was in RD. It was just a very flexible job. And there were, at night I would leave my door open and watch HGTV and wait for students. And now I look back and I'm like, I could have been painting that whole time. Right. But I didn't. Art really came back into my life from motherhood and this space I had while my child was sleeping. And I've always loved it. I've always wanted it. One of my desires has always been to do art on the side of being a stay-at-home mom. And it just started happening and has continued. And I'm pretty amazed when I look back at how God has really continued to provide in it and for it to become what I'm considering a really, really small business on the side of what I'm doing.
That's awesome. So you may have to remind me of the timeline. So you got married while you were in RD, right? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Between my first and second year. So that 2012, I got married. And then I finished while I was pregnant with my first little girl. And that was in 2015. And so literally my end date was when she was born.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you're like right straight into it the next season.
Yes. My boss was incredibly gracious to give me the week off before she was due, but that I was still, it worked out once again, a God thing. The timing where I was still under my insurance through her birth date. My insurance ran out at the end of June. She was born June 28th.
Oh, wow.
And so I was able to still use that. We were going to figure it out if we had to, but yeah, it was
that's definitely a blessing. Yes.
The nitty-gritty adulting things we all love.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So what kind of projects, you want to tell us a little bit more about the projects that you're doing now and what you're getting to kind of build on the side?
Yeah, I do a lot of commissions for people, and it's usually of their people that they love or their pets or places. I just finished my largest watercolor on paper commission of a beautiful location in another country that's the beach. It makes me want to go so bad. Somebody wrote and was like, I wish this was a Narnia situation where I could just stare at the painting and it become real. And that's how I felt. But anyways, my largest painting of a place, and it was 24 by 36 inches, so 2 feet by 3 feet. And nice. That was really fun. Yeah. And then I've done a lot of portraits, which I wasn't ever really planning to get into portraits. They're really intimidating.
I would imagine. Yeah. I haven't tried, but
yeah, it's intimidating because people know their people so well. And I have a photo to go off of, and I don't know that person. And so I might get just one little thing off and then they might look off. But I'm slowly getting better in that area. So that, and then I've done a lot of homes and things like that. And then on the side, so those are projects I do for other people. I also do calligraphy, not as much anymore. I'm doing a lot more watercolor paintings. But the other things I'm enjoying are personal projects and personal series I'm trying to keep up with. Hymnscapes is one of them, which I can go into later. And then abstract work, florals, animals, basically anything that's in nature. I'm drawn to and I'm pursuing, learning about and painting.
That's great. Yeah. So just kind of using that spare time that you have and creating and painting. And then, if someone has an interest in it, being able to sell that as well, potentially.
Yes.
That's cool. Yeah. So tell us more about the hymnscapes.
Yeah. Hymnscapes I've been fascinated in landscapes, especially skies, for a couple years now. And I was thinking of the hymn, Be Still My Soul. And I just kept seeing this scene of fog on a river and the sun kind of breaking through, but not really. And just how it, in my mind, took the visual of what the lyrics have in it when we don't know the unknown and there's fear and it's hard and it's foggy, but that through it, like, God really is there and in control, and to just be still and to settle ourselves in that truth. And so I just saw this visual that came with that song. And so I painted that, and it's just started this whole journey with those. I've done several, and either I will see an image and I will find a song that goes with that image, or I'll take a photo and use that photo, or I will hear a song and then I'll see something in my mind that I want to make come to life, or I'll get ideas that I'll try to cobble together to get across, even if it's just one line of the hymn. That's really what I'm trying to do. It's been really, I think, a good exercise and continuing on one idea for a long time. I plan on doing this. There's a lot of hymns.
Right, so that's true.
Possibly never be exhausted, but it's been really good to just continue on one idea and to kind of focus my mental energy, because I tend to be all over the place, trying to do too many things.
Gotcha. Yeah. I can definitely picture with Be Still My Soul, that there is that stillness, at that point in the morning maybe. And looking at it like a pristine lake, I can totally picture it. Yeah. So what's your process like when you're creating art? I guess it may be different based on what project you're doing. But.
Yeah, very different. If it's a commission and it's for somebody, I talk to that person, obviously, and I get a photo and I do a sketch and then paint, and that's more cut and dry. If it's an idea I have, I usually work in my sketchbook a little bit before I put it down to paper, and then I share it. And Instagram's been a huge platform for me to share work, and honestly, where I've built up a customer base and even people interested in the art I'm doing for myself. So it's been a really helpful tool for me to be able to share. It's hard to, share sometimes the stuff that's going on or that you're processing through. But that's been a huge area where I've received support and feedback that's been really helpful in learning my style and learning my art process. But I am trying to keep up a sketchbook habit as well, so that I do have those ideas, or if I do have them in my mind, I can get them down, know they're in a safe place, and I won't forget them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a place to look to, or, if you're wanting to work on something and you're like, this is some inspiration I can pull from. Yeah.
Exactly. I also take a lot of photos on my phone. I did a lot of photography in college, and then I save them on my computer so that I can go back and pull up images that I've taken and be like, oh yeah, I loved that landscape. This is why. Yeah, it's I feel like a lot of my process is practicing, which always learning is really important.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I know you touched on it a little bit about the relationships that you built in college. And then also you were just talking about, building that community on Instagram as well and support. So how has community impacted you as an artist or just as a person, whichever?
Yes. Community has been huge for me as an artist. I really like verbally processing, bouncing ideas off people. I like reassurance and just talking through the directions I'm going in. And my husband's great. He listens. He is in the IT world. He gets art to an extent, but sometimes it's like I talk about it too much with him,
I know what you mean.
Yeah. I need to give him a break. I've been really thankful for just friends who want to listen to me talk about art, my processing. I made some really good friends in college who were in the art department with me, but then, like I said, who weren't, and who have continued in creative fields themselves. And one who is an artist now who didn't even study art. But we are all in close communication. And so there's a lot of just encouraging, and the ones who are all pursuing art right now will bounce things off each other or give each other business advice. And the amazing thing, which is huge for me because of my place in life right now, is we're doing it all through virtual communication. And with little kids, I don't have as much time to go to any shows, to do any sort of actual in-person community as much. That's limited, and I usually reserve it for my church and for connecting with the people who are here in town. But through Marco Polo, through text, through even Instagram, I've been able to keep up with my friends. We've spurred each other on. We're the ones, commenting and just being like, that's great. Or, hey, have you thought about this? Giving each other gentle critiques, things like that. And it's been huge for art. I am interested one day in finding it more local. I'd love like a group to, and I know I have friends still in town who do that with one another. And when I'm not in this stage that I'm in of life with littles and just, limited time on my hands, I hope to get, into more collaborative or roles with actual like in-person people. But for now, what a blessing to have the technology that we do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even right now, this season is kind of helping us all find new tools to do that too, and realize, oh, this isn't as hard as we maybe thought it was to connect with each other. So yeah, that's super cool. And if you were to think about people that are probably out there, I'm guessing there's a lot of artists that are just sort of working in their own like silo, maybe, in their own area. Would you have any words of encouragement or like things that you've done that have helped to foster that community?
My mom always used to say, if you want a friend, be a friend. So I think the biggest thing you can do is to make it about the other person and the other people. I hope I do that with my friends, and to really just love them and find people. And if you don't have those people, but you find somebody you really resonate with through Instagram or something, and you realize, hey, we might like mesh, encourage them, comment on their things, and who knows, you could find community there, or even just friend groups, or you could even ask a friend you already have, hey, could I start bouncing these ideas off you? I need someone to talk to about this. and say, what do you have going on in your life as well, so that it becomes a two-way street. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Encourage
for sure.
others, and then you'll be surprised and blessed by how it turns around.
Yeah, that's good. Love that. Are you looking to build a new website or improve your current website? I personally use Bluehost web hosting for my website, and I really love their user-friendly nature and their seamless integration with WordPress. To learn more about what Bluehost has to offer, you can check out creativeimpactpodcast.com/Bluehost. You can also find additional resources to live creatively and make an impact at creativeimpactpodcast.com/resources. Now back to my conversation with Katelyn. So now I'd love to dive a little bit more into motherhood and what that journey has been like for you. So I know you started obviously as an artist and just, kind of living life, and then became a mom. So what has it been like kind of balancing those elements of your life?
Yeah. I really became a mom first. And then I would say I recently, in the last couple of years, started actually introducing myself, and I do art on the side, or I'm an artist as well. I didn't do that before.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's taken me some time to get comfortable with that title. And it has been a journey for sure. But motherhood, I've always wanted to be a mom. I've always dreamt of having kids, and now they're here, and it is the most wonderful thing and the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, because as Paul Tripp says in his parenting book, I'm an ambassador for their souls. I am not in charge of their little lives, like as much as I'm not. And there's a weight to raising little humans with souls. They're eternal beings. And I desperately want them to know the Lord and to love the Lord, and pray for that. Treat them as my little mission field right now, and try to witness to them through just how we live our days. And it is not perfect, and it is messy, and I fail a lot. And so it's been a huge area that I'm learning to have to trust God with, and to really just say, Lord, this is why you do the work, and I am just a vessel that you are gracious enough to use. So motherhood to me is wrapped up in all of that, and then just down to the nitty-gritty of feeding them, clothing them, keeping up with them, and trying to be fun sometimes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Try to have some fun moments along the way of like the everyday.
Exactly. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And you've kind of talked about it a little bit, where you've been able to find during nap times and things like that. How do you find that motherhood maybe feeds into your artistry, or vice versa?
Yeah. I think it has been, the other thing about motherhood is and it can be a thankless role.
Yeah.
And if you have mom, thank them. Just do it. I just can't get over what my parents, did for me growing up, now that I look back on it, and now that I'm trying to raise my own kids. But I find that I get a lot of purpose out of art doing it on the side. It really helps me feel like I've checked off tasks in a day, when you literally might not have gotten anything done, except for paint, a little dog or, something like that. And the only other thing you've done is survived and gotten people down for naps. So it's been a huge outlet for me, just to have a purpose outside of the motherhood aspect. And it's brought a little extra income in and provided for us in awesome ways that we've been really thankful for. And I also just love it. And so it's just such it's a passion. It's truly passion. And so that to have time to work on something you love is a blessing. Motherhood has definitely influenced it in just the things I'm interested in too. I think nature and the things I can point out to my kids, they are very interested in what I'm doing. My oldest constantly brings me paintings of skies. it's really sweet. So I think just nature and things that they also connect with.
Right. Because you can all connect
It's
together in that.
yeah, exactly. And then this last time after I had my youngest, I couldn't do anything. I was nursing a baby all the time, or I was trying to chase two other littles around and keep them from fighting or, breaking the house, the things that you do. The
Just
real
keeping
life
everyone
moments.
alive.
Yeah, exactly. It was really early on. And so I couldn't do, it was literally around the clock baby time. I just couldn't get these gestural movements I was watching my little girls do while I'm sitting holding a baby. And I couldn't get those out of my head. And so I've done little gestures of them. And it started really the people vein, I think,
Oh, that's neat.
that I've gone into. And I just have this desire to capture them. And I'm still that's one of those ideas I have that I really want to pursue one day when I have more time. But that'll come.
Yeah, for sure. That's super cool. Yeah, it probably makes you more aware of the beauty of those everyday movements and gestures and how they interact with one another. So would you say that there was a certain point where was the jump from 1 to 2 bigger, or 2 to 3, or just having kids in general? What was that like?
1 to 2 was really hard for me. 2 to 3 has not been as difficult for me. And there's several factors. One of them, I think, is that the girls have each other, and they were pretty content after Thomas was born. And so they had each other to play with.
Right. They can kind of help entertain each other.
Yeah. It was at that sweet spot of 4 and 2, where the 2-year-old could communicate enough with the 4-year-old that it wasn't as much, she's just touching my stuff, and there's actual play. And that's continued to develop, and it's really, really sweet sisters. I didn't have a sister growing up, and so I'm watching the relationship, and it makes my heart so happy.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's a very different vibe than with brothers, for sure.
It is. Yeah, so that's been so this transition's been a little bit easier. It's been harder on the art sense because my time shrunk
right
a little bit. And so I am currently wrestling with just what's the best use of my time. I really do want to pursue art, but obviously my children are the point. And raising them is my first calling after being a wife, and I don't want to lose that focus. It's easy because, like I said, motherhood can be a thankless job, and I actually receive feedback on art.
Right.
And I just want to make sure
it's easy to put the energy into the thing that you're getting more accolades for, or praise.
Yes.
And I mean, I think that's why people work long hours a lot of the time, because you're actually getting feedback and yay, great job, and they're feeling accomplished at work rather than at home. But that's cool that you're keeping that perspective of the value of it, trying to keep the perspective of the value of what you're instilling in your kids, even when you don't get that thanks every single day. So
yes, exactly. They're eternal. My art isn't. And that alone, I think, is a good starting point on certain days. Maybe like today, for instance, to just remember that for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So my guess is that there's a lot of people out there right now that are listening that are in a similar season, or maybe just now transitioning into motherhood. And I know I had kind of put out a survey of what are people interested in hearing about? And one of the things was, transitioning into being a mom, and then also still being able to express, as an artist, whether that's through visual art or dance or music, whatever it might be. So do you have any words of advice? I know you're still living it right now too, but any words of advice or wisdom that you would want to give?
Yeah, there is another artist who put it this way: making art in the margins of your life when you can't. So for instance, I don't hire anyone to watch my kids for any portion of time to do art. I'm literally using whatever spare moments I have that aren't spent with my husband. And he and I have a very independent we're both very independent. And so we actually like have to schedule date nights and be like, we should probably hang out.
Right.
Because we're both like, we're just so content to be in the same room with each other doing our things and, like chatting while we're doing them. More me being like, look, what do you think? And, he's like commenting on the art. So yeah, so we're pretty content to be in the same room together doing our own things and chatting while we're doing it. So we try to anyway schedule date night. So anyway, making in the margins of your life, when that's where you're at, it's important to actually name those margins. And she shared all this, and it actually really helped me go, okay, I need to name my space, name the time I have. And so I was able to write down, I have on a really good day 2 hours in the afternoon and on a really good day 3 hours at night. So I have a total of 5 hours, and that's not every day, during a day, if everything goes smoothly. So then I went ahead and just kind of in my mind have lopped off a whole hour, so that I'm a big planner organizer, so that I just think I'm trying not to get frustrated when the time disappears because my kids need me, or they don't nap, or
that could get
X, Y,
into
or
a
Z.
slippery slope if it's like,
it can.
You're taking away from my time, Yeah.
Exactly. When that's not the right perspective, which I struggle with. So anyway, my encouragement would be name your margins, name the space you have, the time you have, and then make the most of that time. When you do whatever it takes you to jump in, to, like, is that set up the scene, like put on the podcast you want to listen to, put on the show, put on the music, for me, it would be do a warm up quickly so that I can jump in, or have everything out, lay it out in the morning so I can sit down. And my other big encouragement would be that art, creating, being creative will always be there. It'll always be a part of you. It might look different depending on your age, depending on what it is you do, but your kids will not always be this age. These are also things I tell myself. My kids will never be 4, 3, and almost 1 again. They're growing quickly. I'm blinking. I have a 5-year-old and I have 3 children, and I'm shocked still when I look around sometimes.
Right.
And yeah, so just to keep that perspective that they're changing and moving. They're not always going to be in my home. So I want to be present with them.
Right. The days, I like that phrase or the quote that's like, the days can feel long, but the years are short, or something like that.
Yes.
So true.
Yes.
I see that with our little nieces and nephews, how fast they grow, and probably especially because we're not seeing them every single day. It's maybe a month or so in between. So we get back together and like, whoa, he's walking now, or, that kind of thing. It's amazing how fast the time can go. So
yeah, it's hard. And it's hard to want to be faithful in the things that are so mundane, because like you said, you're not like away from them and then together and wow, you're growing up so fast. You don't almost see the growth until you have those like light bulb moments and go, wait, where did my babies go?
Right.
Yeah.
I remember hearing someone say one time that, we tend to say, oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And she was like, really, we do have time. It's just what is our priority, So like, that's not my priority right now. And I was really convicted by that, because I'm like, ooh, I do tend to say that a lot. And rather than I don't have time for that, it's like I'm choosing to use my time another way,
Yes.
So it's a good perspective shift, I feel like, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a huge encouragement for moms and really parents in general. I hope that everyone has their own flow of what works for them, but it's nice to keep that in perspective of, this is a season, and just because it doesn't look like you want it to right at this moment, like doesn't mean that it can't grow or change over time,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's super good. So kind of in a similar vein, but a little bit different, more broad, I guess. Is there anything that you would like to share right now with artists in general? So not maybe parents, but just in general artists, a word of encouragement that you have on your heart?
I would say to artists, to makers, if you're ever feeling stuck or discouraged, and I think right now with our current just climate, it can be easy to just feel a little stuck in general in life, to go back to basics. And mine would be like, why do I want to make art? Why this passion for it? And I think it goes back to God for me, and that he created me with these skill sets, and it's a gifting and something that I do think, like, I've grown those skills over time, but I think ultimately it's been something he gave me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, well, why do I do it? And if the answer in all of life isn't to glorify God, then I'm not coming at it from the right place. So if you're feeling stuck, I would say go back to, how can doing this glorify God? And it's pretty amazing when you think about even like a sketchbook practice. Well, that's honing and molding and growing skills that God's given me. That's glorifying God, because he's given me those, and that's being a good steward of what he's given me.
That's true. Yeah.
And pursuing it deeper is glorifying him. And then I also think it can help you put perspective on what you need to focus on in the moment. And and also just, that's my inspiration comes from the fact that we have a creator. When I look around, I can't help but want to reflect his creation and to share that through paintings and stuff. And so go back to what inspires you. What is it that you just can't help but share? And that's what you're doing in your art form, is you're trying to share something. And maybe name those things. That can just really help and encourage you to keep going, or if you feel like you've veered off, to get back on track. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Really love that. And I like the idea of naming it, and whether it's verbally or writing it down, posting it up somewhere, this is why I love what I do, and trying to get back to the heart of that, because we can so easily take on all these other things that may not really be necessary, and we're just kind of letting it stick to us, and instead of kind of sifting through and saying no to some stuff, that's not really that, I don't know, part of what we're really passionate about. So thank you. That's awesome. So I like to ask all of my guests, what is one of your favorite things right now? And you can, anything from like chapstick to, a book or something super deep, whatever you want to go with. And you can have more than one if you want to.
This is super random, but I guess it's not, because of the fact that I'm doing a lot of portraits right now. I randomly stumbled upon a YouTube short series called Portrait Artist of the Year 2020. And it looks like 9 episodes, and it has the feel of the Great British Baking Show. So immediately I was in love. It's calming, but it's set up where it's 9 painters at a time paint 3 different subjects who are sitting for 4 hours for these artists.
Wow.
Yeah. And they do a portrait of them, and then the person picks one of those to keep. And then there are judges who then select one from each group of 9 to move on to the finals. And I haven't gotten there yet, but it's been a nice little,
sounds super fun
treat. Yes. Even David was watching it with me last night. He's like, this is amazing. And they all have such different styles. It's been encouraging too, because it's like, look, like anyone can do this. They have, I mean, obviously they're very skilled and practiced, but they all have unique styles and looks and abilities to grasp the likeness of the subject. Anyway, it's been a little fun thing lately. And then the other thing I love right now is taking my kids to the pool. I'm very thankful ours opened up. And
Yay.
Yes, I don't love the getting there part, but once we're in the water and all together, I love it. I'm not distracted. It's probably one of our happiest places.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and that show sounds super fun. I'm going to have to look it up, because I love those kind of competition shows too, And I love what you're saying. I'm like, this totally ties into some of what we were already talking about, but just the idea of like everyone has their own unique voice and style. And it's so easy to get caught up in comparison, with other people that we're seeing, or maybe even people we admire, like, well, I'm not as good as them, or I don't have that same exact skill set, but that we all have something unique to offer.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, any words to add to that about like comparison?
Yeah. I think when you do and I know I get caught in that trap very easily. If you start comparing yourself, especially if it's like specific and to somebody, instead try to see how you could encourage them. Because if you're comparing, it means you probably admire them and want to be like them. And so instead look at how you could encourage them and spur them on and make it less about you. That's what I have to do with myself. And then obviously I pray a lot about it and try to give it up. And I also will sometimes like move on, try to just shift gears completely, do something else, do something that's more, natural for me, slapping on paper or whatever, instead of trying to draw something intricate, just get out of that space for a minute, cook something, bake something, not art related, just get out of, try to move on. But I think encouraging one another when you feel like comparing is a really good place to start.
Yeah, that's so good. Yay, thank you. So if anyone is interested in getting in touch with you or kind of seeing your art, where can they find you?
Yeah, my most current pictures would be on my Instagram, and it's at little_blue_desk. And I also have a website that I'm going to hopefully have looking a little better by the time this airs. We'll see. It's a time thing. But that is www.littlebluedesk.com. And it just has more pictures on it right now. I hope to share a little more behind the scenes of my hymnscapes eventually and post on my process. But I'm not a writer naturally, so that's intimidating to me. Yeah, those are probably the two places. I'm also on Facebook, and my Instagram will link to Facebook as well. Yeah, lots of options.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Katelyn. I appreciate you taking time to share with us and just get to chat about life and motherhood and all those things. So thank you.
Thank you. It was so nice to process some of this verbally.
I'm so grateful to Katelyn for sharing her story. What a great reminder to be faithful in whatever season we find ourselves, and to see the value in community and how we can help spur each other on in our lives, in our work, in our faith. I'm reminded every single day of the need for community and how valuable it is when we have people that are coming around us and helping to support us in whatever season of life we're in. And I know right now community is especially important. So I'm so grateful that I get to be part of your life and your world through this podcast. You can find links from the show and the full show notes on our website, creativeimpactpodcast.com. Are you enjoying the podcast? Do you want to partner with us to help it grow? You can become a monthly supporter by joining our Patreon community. As a supporter of the podcast, you'll get access to extra content that is only available for patrons. Right now, as a patron, you get access to extra content from episode 3 with Whitney Dufresne and also episode 5 with Randall Flynn. We'll be adding extra content on a regular basis, so be sure to check it out. You can learn more at creativeimpactpodcast.com/Patreon. That's creativeimpactpodcast.com/PATREON. Another simple way to support the show is to leave a rating or review on iTunes. Next week, my guest for the podcast is Laura Morton. Laura is a former professional dancer and currently serves as an associate professor of dance and director of the ballet division at Belhaven University in Jackson, Mississippi. With a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and a Master of Science degree in Applied Exercise Physiology, Laura has so much knowledge and wisdom to share. I'm super excited for August and all that's in store. We have some incredible guests coming up on the show. Cannot wait to share with you guys. Also be on the lookout for or listening for some fun giveaways that'll be coming in the near future. I'll definitely share more details in the episodes coming up. Thank you so much for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and visit audibletrial.com/creativeimpact to get your free audiobook and your free trial of Audible. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. I'll see you next week for my conversation with Laura Morton.